taxes.
We want lower taxes, bigger paychecks, and more jobs for American truckers and for American workers. This is the largest tax cut in the history of our country. It is incredible. It's going to put people to work.
President Trump, meantime, is taking aim at, quote, fake news.
Media is bad. They're really dishonest people. We want a wall and we want great border security.
This is a wasteland. When you look around, property after property has been destroyed out here. You can see the car behind me looks like it's gone through Armageddon.
The head of NBC News firing back after bombshell allegations that his network decided not to report explosive sexual assault allegations against movie mogul Harvey Weinstein.
NBC cravenly caved to pressure and killed the piece. They ought to be ashamed.
The Boy Scouts of America will now allow girls.
This is just more madness, and I think most parents are tired of it.
I watched Colin Kaepernick, and I thought it was terrible. The NFL should have suspended him for one game, and he would have never done it again. You cannot disrespect our country, our flag, our anthem. You cannot do that.
No, but
yeah, I'm not either.
When you see that it's Friday the 13th, you're just thinking, well, I'm glad I'm not flying today. I better not walk under a ladder. Is that a black cat? Stuff like that. But generally, I'm not superstitious.
Yeah, right, normally, every other day, I'm under the ladder. Every day, I'm like, okay, I'm going to walk under the ladder. I'm tired of walking around it. Right?
Don't step on that crack.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. We have so much news to talk about. The president talked yesterday in Pennsylvania, and Sean Hannity got an exclusive interview. So president bringing his tax plan reform right to the American people there.
It was a rally at an Air Force hangar out in Pennsylvania. The president said it is time to take care of the middle class with a big tax cut for him.
Let the campaign for reform begin. Griff Jenkins is live in Washington with more. Hey, Griff.
Good morning, guys. You know, the president loves truckers. He called them America's heroes, and he says this plan will put more money in the pockets of working families and the middle class.
My Council of Economic Advisors estimates that this change, along with a lower tax rate, would likely give the typical American household a $4,000 pay raise. Could be a lot more than that, too.
And he wants to simplify an outdated tax code, reducing the existing 7 brackets, or 8 if you include the 0 bracket, as he does, down to a simple 4. They would be 0%, 12%, 25%, and 35%. The key here is expansion of that 0 bracket to include more people who would have fallen into higher brackets. And the plan doubles the standard deduction for individuals and families and cuts the corporate rate from 35% to 20%. And he told our Sean Hannity, this is going to make history.
This is the largest tax cut in the history of our country. It is incredible. It's going to put people to work. So right now, Sean, we are the highest taxed nation in the world, and we're going to be now down in the lower rung in terms of taxes.
Now, the president's calling for bipartisan support, but Democrats are panning this speech. House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi calls it a massive tax cut for the wealthy. But the real goal is to get all the Republicans on board, and House Speaker Paul Ryan's making a big speech today at the Heritage Foundation where he's going to say we have to seize the moment, and seizing the moment it would. It's been more than 30 years since we had major tax reform overhaul. The year was 1986, and Dionne Warwick topped those charts with That's What Friends Are For. We'll see what happens, guys.
Right, that's right.
Little history.
They went right to Psychic Friends Network. I don't know what was more successful. That was pretty big for a while.
That's what friends were for $2.95 an hour. A minute, actually. Griff, thank you very much. Actually, he's up on Capitol Hill. They are predicting, Republicans are predicting, they will have a vote on the president's tax cut for the middle class on, I'm not making this up, Christmas Eve.
All right.
That's when they think they're going to pass it. You know, they only work about 15 minutes a week, so it looks like that's hyperbole. They obviously work half an hour, but nonetheless, it looks like Christmas Eve is when it's going to.
Well, the GOP needs something to pass, since they're the majority, right?
They need a win.
This is their only hope.
So what he did is he broke down to brackets last night. He talked about it in detail with Sean Hannity, and he talked about the need to get the corporate rate down to 20% so we can repatriate some funds. But there is some pushback already saying amongst Republicans, I think you're actually asking for a little bit too much. We're going to have to maybe up that, lessen that top bracket and up the corporate rate. He originally wanted 15. He settled on 20. Now they're talking about 23 or 25. So the negotiations are already starting.
Well, Democrats are going to have to come to the table at this one, but he called them last night obstructionists. He said they don't want to do anything productive. They want higher taxes and open borders.
Yep. And as Griff mentioned in his report, the Democrats are already saying it's just a tax cut for the wealthy. And just keep in mind, what they don't tell you, though, is something like 10% of the American taxpayers pay 70% of the taxes. So obviously, that 10% is going to be impacted. But the average family, according to the President of the United States, he quoted a nonpartisan outfit yesterday, he said the average family, middle-class family, would save $4,000 if his plan is enacted.
Now, if you look at the numbers and if you look at the brackets, how do the Democrats say it's a tax cut just for the wealthy? It looks like a tax cut for everyone. Am I missing something in the fine print?
I mean, they are getting
politics.
The top bracket's going from 39 to 37. So, of course, because people pay that much.
I thought it was 35. Down to 35.
Yeah, but they're getting rid of the loophole. So for the highest earners, the most successful people in the country, it is about a wash. Anyway, what do you think about it? Email us, friends@foxnews.com.
All right, let's talk about journalism, and let's talk about the lack thereof, according to the president. He says he's really upset at NBC for two separate headlines, one of which the General Mattis has come back and backed up the fact that this is just not true. They had this story that President Trump wanted to up our nuclear arsenal by 20%. And he said, I never even said that. I want to refurbish what we had and update what we know that we're going to be possibly needing to defend the country. I never wanted to upgrade our nuclear arsenal by 20%. We got enough right now. And to back that up, General Mattis said the same thing. He said this, quote, recent reports that the president called for an increase in the U.S. nuclear arsenal are absolutely false. This kind of erroneous reporting is irresponsible.
Look, here's what the president is doing. He's just poking the press.
Well, this is blatant. This is yes or no. Did you or didn't you?
What's the motive here? They're just trying to paint the picture that he is ready to, he has his finger on the nuclear button and he's ready to blow things up?
He's putting the press on notice because the press is never held to consequences, he feels, when they put out wrong
fake news,
information.
he says.
And he says that that claim by NBC that he wanted to increase our nuclear capacity and arsenal tenfold, not true. He sat down, as you saw earlier, with Sean Hannity out at that Air Force hangar in Pennsylvania and said this about fake news.
Media is bad. They're really dishonest people. These are very, very dishonest people in many cases, and not all. Look, I know some reporters, I know some journalists that are phenomenal people and very straight, very honest, but there's such dishonesty. I mean, you know, it's interesting. If I was just watching television, you don't know whether or not, because, you know, you're just watching a report. But when you're the one being written about, you know if it's good or bad, and it's always, they try and make it negative. So the media has turned, I call it fake media. It's fake. It's so much fake news.
You brought up another story that General Kelly was going to get fired by the president. It's absolutely not true. And that Tillerson was going to quit. He said, we never even talked about quitting, and they had lunch yesterday. No news came out of the lunch yesterday, so therefore they had to make up another story, according to the president, that is negative, that he had to knock down.
Right, and so there is a story out this morning that the president is going after the network's licenses. You got to point out that the FCC does not grant or revoke a license to a network. They actually grant and could revoke a license for a local station. But nonetheless, there's not going to be any revocation of anything. Mm-hmm. He's just getting at them.
Right now, we have our licenses on us, or we can get a ticket for broadcasting without license.
I'm carrying my license in case I need a drink. In case somebody's going to card me. In case Joel asks me for proof of date of birth.
Which is to make sure you go on the air. By the way, do you remember the old licenses? No picture, just your eye color and your height?
Really?
It must have been tough being a doorman back then.
Wait, in your lifetime? No
yes,
picture.
in my lifetime.
Really?
No, I look back to the people who settled the West, and I asked how they got into saloons.
I don't think they had licenses then.
No, I'm telling you, it was in my lifetime.
All right, let's talk about the NFL, because when Sean was sitting down with the president, he asked him about the Colin Kaepernick stuff, and the president said that Colin Kaepernick, that the NFL got this all wrong. They should have suspended him right out of the gate.
I watched Colin Kaepernick, and I thought it was terrible. And then it got bigger and bigger and started mushrooming. And frankly, the NFL should have suspended him for 1 game, and he would have never done it again. They could have then suspended him for 2 games, and they could have suspended him if he did it a 3rd time for the season, and you would never have had a problem. But I will tell you, you cannot disrespect our country, our flag, our anthem. You cannot do that.
And you know what? President Trump is on the verge of a major victory if next week at the owners' meeting the league decides that players must stand during the national anthem.
And the union's going to be in that meeting, and that's going to be key. If the union says, I'm not telling my people to do it, we're going to have to negotiate that in the next CBA. They don't have to do it. One of the Tampa Bay Bucks players said, I got a real problem if the commissioner tells me to stand. I was going to stand anyway, but if he tells me to stand, I'm not. And that's the whole mentality of the athletes are going to say, are you going to push me around and tell me what I have to do when I don't have to, when I can make my own decision?
But right now, not standing is bad for their business. And if it's bad for the league, it's ultimately bad for the players as well, because if the league doesn't make as much money, they can't pay the players down the
Well, yesterday when the president was talking, when he was in the hangar talking, out of everything that he said, he got the biggest response, the biggest cheers when he said, do we love the American flag? And the crowd went crazy.
And
hey,
we
Jillian.
do.
Hi. We do.
I think the next CBA, though, I think this one goes through like 2021. So, I mean,
so if
it comes down to that, we've got years.
Modify it.
Yeah.
They can modify it.
We'll see. Anyway, good morning to you guys. Good morning to you at home. Let's get straight to the Harvey Weinstein scandal. TMZ reporting Harvey boarded a private jet overnight, heading to a sex rehab and behavior center in Arizona. He was originally supposed to head out of the country, but that plan changed. This coming just hours after TMZ reported Weinstein's daughter called 911, claiming her dad was, quote, suicidal and depressed. As for Hillary Clinton, it's been 6 days, and she has finally said she will give Weinstein's campaign donation back. Well, sort of.
Would you give the money back?
Well, there's no one to give it back to. What other people are saying, what my former colleagues are saying, is they're going to donate it to charity. And of course I will do that. I give 10% of my income to charity every year. This will be part of that. There's no doubt about it.
Weinstein and his family have given more than $1.4 million in political contributions to the Democratic Party. Congress couldn't repeal Obamacare, so President Trump is taking matters into his own hands. This morning, he'll sign an executive order promoting health care choice and competition. The order could expand coverage options by allowing insurance plans to be sold across state lines. Some Democrats are concerned the new rules will lower prices for the healthy and drive up costs for the sick. Did you see this? The New York Yankees moving on, and the Cleveland Indians are going home. The Bronx Bombers beating the former American League champs last night 5-2. Didi Gregorius, the hero, not only did he hit 1, he had 2 home runs in 3 innings, by the way. The Yankees play the Houston Astros in the championship series tomorrow. And the Nationals beating the Cubs last night, forcing a Game 5 tonight at 8 Eastern. So, listen, he had some pretty big shoes to fill, by the way.
And I was watching it. The crowd didn't roar. It's amazing to watch the away team win a championship.
I know. Yeah.
Total, it's like a library.
Yeah, I know. It's so much better when you're at home. But
Right.
It's fine. Thanks,
Watching
Julian.
on TV, our favorite thing to do during the day. Right, folks, watching TV?
Yes. Meanwhile, 13 minutes after the hour, have you heard the Boy Scouts are going co-ed? Girls will now be allowed to join.
Wait, isn't that called the Girl Scouts?
I thought so. What's it going to do for Girl Scout attendance? Can boys join there?
All right, plus it's the story the media refuses to cover and Democrats refuse to investigate. Like at this nearly empty hearing on the Hill. The scandal is growing surrounding a Democrat IT staffer accused of selling secrets to foreign governments. Congressman Louis Gohmert is investigating it, and he joins us next.
New developments in the scandal surrounding the former IT aide to Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and this week's House Republicans held hearings on this very case. House Judiciary Committee member Congressman Louis Gohmert is one of those holding the hearings, was really disgusted by the lack of turnout and interest on the other side. But first, tell me about this guy, what he's been accused of, and why we should care, Congressman.
Well, it is absolutely phenomenal. But first of all, I know there's been statements, well, we feel sure there was nothing classified that was gained by the Awans. He has been working on Capitol Hill for 12 years or so. He's worked for at least 62 different Democratic members, and one fired him pretty quickly for incompetence. But on the Hill, you're limited in how much you can make. And when he would hit up against 160,000 as the max, working part-time for different members, he would get another family member enrolled, and they would start making, and then they'd max out around 160, and he'd get another. He got up to 5 family members, other friends, and anyway, it's really unclear who did the computer work for these different folks. I was shocked to find out this week that when we were hearing people talk about this, that did the investigating, that a lot of years he'd spend 3 months or more in Pakistan and operate and work on our computers here on Capitol Hill remotely from Pakistan. I'm not really trusting in the Pakistani internet.
So he's problematic. He had passwords, he had access, and he was never really in attendance.
He had passwords because the WikiLeaks stuff, emails showed that some of the Democratic National Committee workers were going, hey, we need Debbie Wasserman Schultz's password to get into her laptop, her iPad, and they said, check with Imran. He knows all of them.
All right, Congressman, so now it's time for a hearing to get to the bottom of this. Who's showing up? No one.
Well, it was the people we asked to show up came because we can't compel the FBI or somebody like that to come at a gathering like this was, because it was not a formal hearing. We were just wanting to gather information, and hopefully our leadership would become more interested, because this is serious stuff. It turns out that not only was he often operating computers remotely, we find out that Becerra, Congressman Becerra, that's now Attorney General out in California, that there were 5,400 at least unauthorized accesses to his computer, and it turns out the Awans had loaded different Congress members' clouds and servers onto one so that anybody could access it without authorization. It's terrible.
I'm curious to see what you guys get out of this. Thanks so much for joining us, Congressman Louis Gohmert.
Well, there's hundreds of potential charges here, federal charges.
Coming up next, I'm going to tell you about this illegal immigrant. This story you're not going to believe. Don't go anywhere. This is Fox and Friends, unless you know differently.
We are back with a Fox News alert. The massive wildfires in Northern California. The incredible video showing a man driving through the fire, surrounded by the flames and embers, trying just to get to safety. Will Carr is live in Santa Rosa, where every home has been destroyed. Will?
Good morning, guys. In the neighborhood we're in, looks like a wasteland here as we go street by street, property by property. It looks like a bomb went off. More than 35 homes and businesses destroyed across this area. And as you're walking through the streets, it's pretty common to see metal just like this melted down that has come off of cars that look like they went through Armageddon. More than at least 23 people have died in these fires, and that number is expected to potentially go up because hundreds of people are still missing. Now, the weather conditions heading into the rest of the day are not favorable. It's another red flag warning day. And for people who are not in the fire's path, there's still terrible air quality going on all across this region. People are actually being asked to wear face masks just like this. The problem is we went to a number of drugstores and grocery stores yesterday, and they're all sold out. So a lot of people having to walk around in their neighborhoods and take in all of this smoke. So another concern as well, guys.
Yeah, Will, I heard one lady say the fire spread in the middle of the night. They were sleeping, and by the grace of God, she woke up in the nick of time. 20 minutes later, her house was completely destroyed. So I guess that's why so many people have died. They were sleeping during this event. Thank you for giving us the news. It's just tragic out there. Thanks, Will.
You bet.
All right, Steve is downstairs. Steve, over to you.
All right. Thanks, Ainsley. A terrible story out of New Jersey where this illegal immigrant is accused of sexually assaulting a 6-year-old girl after breaking into her house in Trenton. Trenton is one of New Jersey's sanctuary cities, and if a Democrat is elected governor in New Jersey, in November in New Jersey might be on track to become the next sanctuary state. But our next guest wants to stop that. Kim Guadagno is lieutenant governor of New Jersey, where I live right now, and the Republican candidate candidate for governor, and she joins us right now. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Steve.
Okay, so your opponent, the Democrat Phil Murphy, says he would block the feds from using any personal information from New Jersey's undocumented criminals.
Right. He's come right out and proudly said the day he won that primary, I'm going to make New Jersey a sanctuary state.
I live in New Jersey. I would like to have a say in that.
Well, I think you should have a say in that. In fact, the say should be no. It's very dangerous for everyone, as you just read. The one story just coming out of Trenton, that, you know, the crime about that was not only did he climb into a window and rape a 6-year-old girl, but he had been arrested before that.
Right.
Illegal, undocumented alien, and let go. So he was on the street.
Right. This is like another one of those cases where the authorities had the opportunity to send the illegal back after he was caught doing something illegal and
at least detain him.
Didn't happen.
Right. If he had been detained and put in a facility and await being detained, he would not have been on the streets of Trenton, a sanctuary city, to rape a 6-year-old.
That's the way, and that's the problem with the sanctuary cities, is they will not honor an ICE detainer.
Correct. They won't even run the background check. You know, when I was the sheriff in Monmouth County, we had a very similar incident involving a child rapist who had been released on bail in Essex County, and he had gotten out and shot 4 college students. 3 of them died. Had they run his background check and found that he was an illegal undocumented immigrant, given the fact that he had committed a violent crime, he'd have still been in jail. And those 4 college kids would not have had to, and their families, gone through all that.
You were sheriff in Monmouth County, New Jersey, which is south of where we're sitting right now. If you were made governor of the great state of New Jersey, how would you turn around these sanctuary cities? Because I know Trenton, which is across the river from Philly, Newark across the river from us, Jersey City across the river from us, all sanctuary cities, and there are a bunch of others.
Well, it's easy. When you become the governor of the state of New Jersey, you take an oath to uphold the laws of the state and the laws of the United States.
Right.
So I would keep my oath. My opponent, of course, would break his oath. He's already said he's going to not keep the promise that he will make if he wins this governor's job. So,
but down in the state of Texas, they have the same inclination that you do, and the Attorney General, Ken Paxton, has said, look, we're going to respect the rule of law, and the governor has as well, and yet the sheriff in Austin, Texas, hey, we're a sanctuary city. We're not going to cooperate.
Well, you know, I think when a law enforcement officer does something like that, he's also violating his oath, because when I became the sheriff, I took an oath to uphold the laws of the state of New Jersey and the states of the and the United States laws. And that's the law. The law of the land is that if you have an illegal immigrant in your state, and it's kind of obvious, isn't it? If you commit a crime in this country, you should be deported.
If you're
I don't
in the country
know.
illegally,
it's almost a no-brainer.
That's the law.
Yeah, that not only is the law, but that's the way to keep people safe. So I'm kind of surprised about the sheriff in Austin, because what happens when an immigration officer comes into Austin, to take a wild example?
Sure.
He's not going to be able to stop immigration officers from coming in. And what happens if that immigration officer gets in trouble? Is he going to tell his sheriffs to stand down? That puts at risk our law enforcement officers. And to me, that's also equally as unacceptable. You're putting at risk the people that you're supposed to be defending in the first place. The incident is the perfect one you just said. And you're also putting law enforcement officers at risk. Unacceptable on any level.
Well, it looks like New Jersey has a choice in November. Kim Guadagno, we thank you very much for joining us. She's the lieutenant governor currently. We should mention that we did reach out to her opponent, Phil Murphy. Did not hear back from him. We'd like to have him on to talk about just this case. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Meanwhile, have you heard the Boy Scouts are now going co-ed? Apparently, girls will be allowed to join. Is that a good idea? Email us right now. Plus, what do you think the voters think about the president's speech last night on tax reform? Todd Pyro is having breakfast with friends in the town the president spoke at. You'll hear from the City Line Diner in Harrisburg. Ooh, that looks good. Coming up. But we probably shouldn't be running this music, talking about ice cold beer and talking about the Boy Scouts.
Right. I mean, absolutely. Right, that's true.
Yeah,
that's true. They're just boys. They're not 21. Although when Brian was growing up, as he revealed in the first 5 minutes of the show, you could drink at 18.
Right.
The news about the Boy Scouts this morning is, yesterday they posted on their website this quote: "The Boy Scouts of America, the BSA, expands programs to welcome girls from Cub Scouts to the highest ranking of Eagle Scout.
That's
so
right.
they're allowing girls into the Boy Scouts.
And one of the reasons is they say so the girls can also, you know, in the Girl Scouts there is no equivalent to the Eagle Scout apparently. And the Boy Scout says that families had requested this. Now, back in the month of, I believe it was August, the Girl Scouts essentially said to the Boy Scouts, hey, why don't you guys concentrate on the young men in this country who are underserved, Latinos, African-American kids, for the most part, don't take part. Rather than take our customers, the girls, why don't you look at more boys?
Yeah, you handle the boys, we've got the girls. I think this is a result of just the PC culture. I think they said they've gotten so many requests from families and from girls to join the Boy Scouts. The board voted unanimously to let them in, to let the girls in, probably because they don't want lawsuits.
The girls can go to the scouting events, but they can't do the Cub Scouts, can't do the Eagle Scouts that they want to be in. Bottom line is, I think the Boy Scouts are getting worried. The attendance is down, so they started reaching to the other gender to bring them in. There's a problem. There's a place for the other gender, and the Girl Scouts have pride and programs on their own. They're worried about their own ranks.
What about the
depleted.
camping trips? When they do the camping trips, do they now going to have co-ed camping trips?
Yeah.
I was reading one column today that said, in today's culture where America's parents, if they have two children of different genders, sometimes it's hard to have a kid in both different programs because they take up so much time. So maybe this makes sense. You can streamline the amount of time.
Helps mom with the carpool.
Yeah, well, they should think about it before they have kids, about the commuting process. It's not our problem. I mean, you got Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. I'm sorry you have so many kids close together.
I think I know how you think about this, but send us your emails. We'd love to hear them.
Please do. When will the Girl Scouts allow boys in? That's the big question.
Should Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts get an Uber app?
Listen,
to get their own brides.
Boys don't want to be part of the Girl Scouts. You know what we talk about? We talk about love. We talk about dating.
In Girl Scouts?
I mean,
in Girl Scouts?
Sure, we probably did. We probably did. We talked about the guy we were dating in fourth grade. We were dating.
I thought it was all about selling cookies.
I thought it was how to make a fire in a stick.
That too.
So I was a campfire girl. I wasn't a Girl Scout. Our cookies weren't as good, side note. But I liked having just that time with the girls to go camping and do it. I don't know. Call me crazy.
I like having that time with the girls.
Just don't lose the Girl Scout cookies. That's all I have to say.
Let us know what you think.
All right.
Are they going to change the name? No longer Girl Scout cookies.
We could talk about this forever. But let's get to this Fox News alert right now. Brand new audio surfacing this morning of a Mandalay Bay hotel employee warning hotel staff that someone was shooting. Listen.
Call the police. Someone's firing a gun up here. Someone's firing a rifle on the 32nd floor down the hallway.
Meantime, an autopsy of the shooter, Stephen Paddock's brain showed nothing abnormal, but he may have been on an anti-anxiety medication known to cause aggressive behavior. Las Vegas police also saying the investigation is far from over. We'll keep you posted. A scathing new report shedding light on the doctors trusted to take care of our nation's heroes. A USA Today investigation revealing the VA covered up serious medical mistakes and shelled out millions in secret settlements for years. VA Secretary David Shulkin says the organization is reviewing its policy. President Trump is working to make it easier to fire careless medical professionals with the VA Accountability Act. Students fight for faith after a Christian group is banned from a student activities fair. An event organizer at Oxford University in England reportedly forbid the Christian Union from setting up a booth in fear of making freshmen feel alienated or unwelcome. The student body later passed a motion declaring it a violation of religious freedom and allowing the Christian group at future fairs. So look, your headlines. I'll send it back to you guys.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, we all grew up with Winnie the Pooh with all those books.
Oh, she did that.
I take umbrage, kill me.
How dare you? He's VP of marketing. You went and saw this movie and talked to the stars.
I did. It's my favorite time of the year because it's finally movies for adults. People are going to go to this movie and say, Winnie the Pooh, who knew? I had a chance to catch up with some of the stars who told me all about the man himself, his imagination, and the inspiration behind these iconic stories. Love this movie.
Thank you.
There was a lot going on.
Yeah.
This couple who wrote the perfect children's book had this imperfect relationship with their children.
Which was very typical of parents of that age, to be fair.
Well, we're going on holiday, just to Italy for a month or so.
When you think of Winnie the Pooh, you think of a safe place. You know, you think of a place where you can go in your imagination and be safe. That's what he had to create because he was in such a traumatic place himself.
It was all those like very, very heavy themes, but done with such a light touch and done respectfully, but never heavy-handed, never felt preachy.
And then there's this whole theme of celebrity. You were like, your character was like One Direction and Harry Potter all wrapped up into one.
Yeah.
What was it like for you to play this role?
It was quite hard actually because Christopher Robin, he's a very sad boy. There's rarely a smile on his face, and that smile only comes out when his father is playing with him in the woods.
Goodbye, Christopher Robin, in theaters tomorrow. And at one point, the real Christopher Robin was the most famous kid in the entire world, right behind Princess Elizabeth.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Really? So even though it is based on children's books, it's a movie for adults.
Movie for adults, absolutely.
Set in the English countryside.
What an incredible 8-year-old boy. He said the most profound thing. We're talking about celebrity and how to deal with it. And he said Christopher Robin gave up his childhood, sacrificed his childhood, so kids all around the world could have an incredible one themselves. And I was just like, wow, you're 8? You are 8, right?
With the cutest dimples.
I know, right?
I
It's all
love
ahead
the
of him.
children's clothes, the English countryside, everything about that is
You'll love
beautiful.
it.
I can't wait to see it.
I think she's going to go.
I think so, too. I think we sold a ticket, guys.
That's one.
That's one.
Thanks, Michael. Great to see you.
Good to see you.
All right, President Trump delivering a message of hope to American workers. A trucker called out by our commander-in-chief last night is going to join us live.
In a good way. Plus, after 6 days, Hillary Clinton finally speaking publicly about Harvey Weinstein.
I was just sick. I was shocked. I was appalled.
But is that appalled and sickness enough? What about those donations? We're going to talk to that man in the orange tie. The judge is next.
All right, former NBC reporter, now he's a freelance with him, Ronan Farrow, speaking out on why the network rejected an expose on Harvey Weinstein.
Walked into the door at the New Yorker with an explosively reportable piece that should have been public earlier, and immediately, obviously, the New Yorker recognized that, and it is not accurate to say that it was not reportable. In fact, there were multiple determinations that it was reportable at NBC.
So why did they let this bombshell story slip away? Let's ask our Fox News senior judicial analyst, Judge Andrew Napolitano. Good morning, Judge.
Good morning. So, who knows why they let it slip away? Perhaps because they can. Perhaps because they, you know, just like any media organization, like Fox, if we wanted to do this, can decide what stories we're going to run with and what stories we're not going to run with.
Right.
And Mr. Weinstein, you know, is deeply embedded in the liberal media on both the East Coast and the West Coast.
So you're saying it's their call. One of the heads of NBC News said the story that was reported was not the story that was brought to us.
Well, that we don't know, but it is their call, and of course it's out there. It's out there now.
But to say it wasn't ready when you have 8 people on camera accusing Harvey Weinstein is not correct, and that's what this reporter says.
Well, there obviously is a bias to a certain extent in favor of Weinstein because of his involvement in the media and his involvement in liberal causes. I mean, what Hillary Clinton said yesterday was pretty profound, but it was a little late in the day for her to be saying that.
We have that soundbite. Let's run it.
I was just sick. I was shocked. I was appalled.
Would you have called him a friend?
Yes, I probably would have.
He donated money to you directly and indirectly. Would you give the money back?
Well, there's no one to give it back to. What other people are saying, what my former colleagues are saying, is they're going to donate it to charity. And of course I will do that. I give 10% of my income to charity every year. This will be part of that. There's no doubt about it.
Is that accurate? There's nobody to give the money back to?
Well, that is not accurate. I don't know exactly which cash she's talking about. If she's talking about cash he bundled, you know, where he had a party and people came to the party and they each gave the max and he handed the checks to her. There's a paper trail of all of that. If he gave money to the Democratic National Committee or a PAC where the amount there's no cap on it. There's a paper trail on that. So there certainly is a person or an entity to which the money can be given back. What is she going to do with that money? Donate it to the Clinton Foundation?
Right. Well, the Clinton Foundation got money from him too.
Yes. Now, what are they going to do with it?
But it does snowball because she's saying, I think he gave upwards of $1 million to the Democratic Party or to her campaign, but he probably was involved in all the celebrity dinners. You know, those $25,000 plate dinners where the celebrities said that they were going to show up. He was probably behind all of that too. So would she give that money back?
I don't know. Who knows what she's going to do? She really is caught a little flat-footed in this, and we don't know what he's going to do. Now, look, when I went to bed last night, we thought he was in Europe, which is why I wrote those notes about extradition. Now it appears he's here.
Right.
He hasn't been indicted for any crime. There's no statute of limitations on rape in California or in New York.
What's going to happen? Will he go to, if he's convicted of this, he'll go to prison?
Well, if he's convicted, if he's indicted, tried, and convicted of rape, you're talking about 20 years. You're talking about a very serious crime.
People look at Noah Oppenheim, who's the president of NBC News, who's a screenwriter, and he says maybe he was looking out for his own self-interest because if I alienate Harvey Weinstein, it's going to hurt me as I try to get more movies done, like Jackie, which he wrote.
Could very well be the situation.
Right.
There needs to be a cultural environment in the country where it is safe to complain about these things, because if these things are true, then I agree with Hillary. They are horrific.
All right.
Judge Andrew Napolitano, we thank you very much for your analysis. All right, coming up.
All right, North Korea says we are on the brink of nuclear war. How do we get here?
This should have been handled 25 years ago. It should have been handled 20 years ago and 10 years ago and 5 years ago.
We have more from President Trump at the top of the hour.
Plus, what do you think the voters are thinking about the president's speech last night on tax reform? Todd Pyro is having breakfast with friends in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Todd?
Good morning, Steve. Yeah, we're talking to the folks here about the president's tax plan. Can he get the deal through Congress? That's the question. And speaking of deals, check this out. For $1.99, you get 2 eggs, hash browns, and toast. That's a deal. We're going to be talking to folks about that all when Fox and Friends comes back.